Do cops treat you different because you drive supercars?
100%. My rule with cops is, look, you have to catch me in the act. The car went sideways. They tried to correct it. It went the other way, hit the light pole, and then hit the fire hydrant.
So how many times do you think you've been pulled over?
Oh, really? Yeah, because I've had other officers that are fans of the channel come to me and say, hey, there's a clip of you in the National Police Training Database. Police officers are on this pedestal that they should be on because they do something that is extremely hard.
Yeah.
Have tons of respect for first responders, firefighters, police officers.
What's up, everybody? Back here with Damon from DDE. I have a bunch of things I want to talk to him about. This guy, if you don't know about DDE, they're the channel that literally started the whole daily driven exotics. That's why it's called DDE. I first discovered Damon's stuff probably 7-8 years ago. And my first McLaren, I drove it daily. And I'm talking like off-road. I mean, I didn't abuse it that much, but you inspired all of that. And I had so many other questions I wanted to ask. And then we met here at August. So we got our friends at August that let us host this conversation. Yeah, I mean, you guys are all welcome. Just take it all in. A few of these cars, I think one of those is at least mine, and you guys can figure out which one.
One of my old cars.
One of them.
I brought the Diablo SV here, and then Matt bought it off me and now won't sell it back to me.
That's how it's going to work?
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, those are some really cool cars. Some of the older Lamborghinis I don't fit in.
Really?
And that was actually a question I had for you because you used to have a Mercy gated.
I had that exact car.
Yeah.
Just yellow.
Just yellow.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten the story, but what was happening with the car? It needed something needed to get fixed, and then they had to try to test something out, and it didn't work out. Like, that's a pretty.
I'd say it didn't work out. Yeah, it's an unfortunate story. I bought this car out of Florida. I came to the boys and said, this is like my dream car. I know what the value of these cars is going to do. This is the last manual V12 Lamborghini made, and we have to find one. An LP. There's other pre-LP Murciélagos, so the very first iteration, which is this yellow one here. They actually have two of them and a silver one over here. But as any manufacturer develops a car, they make it better and better, and they create improvements. And the LP is the best version of the Murciélago, short of a SV. But they made even fewer of those, as we just spoke about, in manual. So I thought my shot of getting one would be this LP car. I found one in Florida. It had a body kit on it, so it looked like an SV. The guy even put the sticker on the side, which I was like, this is awful. But I did my homework, hadn't been in any accidents, which was my fear. And I ended up picking up for $285,000 US.
Dude.
And right now, that car's worth $1 million.
Yeah.
So I was never going to sell it. And through my journey of ownership, I obviously maintained my cars. I took my cars up to August Garage, and they were doing services on it. It's always gone great. And it got to a place where my gearbox, when I would shift, was just a little chunky, even after it warmed up. And I said, hey, maybe we should just replace the synchros in a gearbox. And they said, yeah, sure, we can do that. So we ordered them. They replaced them. They said, your car's ready. I went to pick it up. And everything was fine except for in first gear when I'd accelerate. And I don't accelerate soft like someone test driving your car would.
Slam on it a little bit.
I get into it a little more because I want to hear the car and experience it. And it popped out of first. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe I just didn't put it all the way into gear.
Like, it was in gear and you just step on it and it would just pop into neutral?
Yeah, pop into neutral and it'd rev up.
Yeah,
so it did that 3 times within the first 3 stops of me heading home. So I turned around and was like, no, there's something wrong. You know, they just did the gearbox. So it's clearly something's just out of alignment. That's all it was. And I took it back to the garage and I was like, I got to drop this back off. I have to go get my daughter from school. Can I steal a car? They gave me a car. I went and got my daughter. An hour after getting my daughter, I'm sitting at home. I get like 7 text messages of this vaguely fuzzy yellow Lamborghini from about 3 blocks away crashed into a pole. And people were like, is this your car? And I'm like, I knew exactly when I saw it, the area, not even a block away from the garage, this open field. It's the only light pole and the only fire hydrant. And there's no building, there's a curb, but that's it. And I immediately called and got man, we're so sorry. Like, we went to take it out for a test drive. And as we were driving down the road, and mind you, this is middle of winter. There's lots of sand and salt put on our roads. It had snowed recently, but it had dried up and it leaves all that residue on the road.
Yeah.
And so they test drove it, and first gear in that car is really tall. You can do about 100 kilometers an hour in first in a Mercy. So I told them too, I was like, you got to get on it. By the way, I said, you got to get on it to experience it popping out.
Yeah.
So I think they pulled out of the driveway and got on it. And in that little bit of a curve on the road, was on it. The car went sideways.
Yeah,
they tried to correct it. It went the other way, and it hopped the
Those
curb,
split decisions,
hit the light pole, and then hit the fire hydrant. So it basically did in like 3 sides of the car. It was in the end, it was not a total loss, which was a headache with insurance. So I got the car back wrecked and a bunch of money, not enough to cover really what I needed. But I ended up just selling the car to a friend who was more interested in taking the project on of rebuilding it.
But you've driven, I mean, the Mercy gated. What do you have now that's gated? You have
I have a first gen
yeah
gated Mercy, which is what I drove here.
You drive those things like
everywhere. It's no joke.
And give them though. Like that's the thing. When I drove that car, Matt's like, "Hey, let's drive that $1 million car." I drove as if like every shift had to be perfect and all this stuff. And
well, if you aren't familiar with it, it's very much a bit of a finicky car because the motor needs to warm up.
Yeah.
But which you can do by starting the car and letting it idle.
Yeah.
And letting the oil and water temp and all that. So now the motor's going to run a lot better. The throttle bodies and all that are going to respond better. But the gearbox cannot be warmed up without the car moving. So you have to know for the first probably 10 minutes of driving a gated Murcielago.
See, that's where I did.
You need to go chill because it's going to feel really chunky. You probably noticed going into second, it was like it almost stops you and then you have to like pull it in.
Yeah.
And going into third's the same. But after about 10 or 15 minutes of driving the car, the gearbox warms up and then it starts to get like buttery smooth. So you cannot
I didn't
shift
get to buttery smooth.
Yeah, you cannot shift fast in a gated Mercy until the gearbox is warm. Or else you're going to grind gears and wreck stuff.
I might have missed that experience because everybody kept saying, "Oh my gosh, it's the best," but I was just so nervous and it felt very mechanically tough.
Yeah, I'll take you on my car sometime.
I would love that. I think that would maybe give me a new appreciation.
Yeah.
I want to talk about cops, okay? Because obviously I don't speed, but friends of mine that do tell me they have issues with police. And dude,
so you don't. Just so we're clear, you don't speed ever.
I don't speed ever unless I'm on it has to be legal. I'm just not going to do that.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm
going to hold you accountable to that one.
No, don't. I can't have that one hold.
I speed. I think the misconception though is, and I want to talk about this real quick before we get into the cop side of things. People think because they see our videos that we're speeding all the time. It's not all the time. There are times when I'm just cruising. And ironically, when we are speeding or driving spirited, I do have rules. I'm not going to, and my rules have changed as I've matured, both in my business, but as an adult and being a family guy. So I have rules where I won't speed or I won't do the more risky, dangerous stuff that I know is considered reckless. So I think sometimes when we get into the cop stuff, when I get pulled over and I'm like, "Hey man, I wasn't doing anything wrong," to the cops, people think I'm lying. But I don't post cop videos where the cops have caught me doing something and I deserve it. Those videos actually never get posted. I get pulled over more than what people see on the internet. And those are the ones where I take the L, I take the ticket, and I'll pay it. The ones you see on the internet are the ones where I was actually driving with a group of cars and I was actually the one, maybe with a few other guys, doing the speed limit. And we had chilled out and been doing the speed limit and obeying laws for the better part of 10, 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, even if we're on a rally. Like an 8-hour day, you're not flat out for 8 hours. So my rule with cops is, look, you're a police officer. To become a police officer, you took an oath. It's like going to court. You took an oath to follow the law to a T, which means it's cat and mouse. You have to catch me in the act. You have to have evidence. Just because you saw me ripping around or you knew I was ripping around in a video from a week ago doesn't mean you get to come out and give me a ticket like a week later. You have to be able to prove it, right? Like that's the world we live in. So, sometimes people get in the comments and like, "Oh, you weren't speeding." It's like, no, I wasn't speeding when I got pulled over for that time period. And I've had a few videos recently where the police pulled me over and they let me go because they knew they had nothing.
Yeah.
I had a double header one day, actually.
Like pull over
in
twice.
the Senna, yeah. In the morning on the way to a car show, they let me go.
Do cops treat you different because you drive supercars? You think? Like, do you think they'll more likely to pull you over?
100%. 100%. Also, over the years of doing daily driven exotics and filming these police interactions where police are wrong or they don't know the law, and I kind of hold up for them that that's not correct. And I've gone and filed complaints on certain officers that have gone too far with it. That's changed the way police also interact with me and everybody, because they took one of my early videos from about 5 or 6 years ago and they put it into the national database. Because I've had other officers that are fans of the channel come to me and say, hey, there's a clip of you in the National Police Training database for like a certain type of, I don't know if it's for all officers, but for like a certain type of police officer.
What is it that you feel they've changed?
How they interact with people who are filming them. And I think they just probably reiterated what was already told to them, which is you're trained. You're supposed to be calm, collected, and in control of the situation, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Right? So if a police officer walks up and starts being verbally aggressive, and that can just simply be like talking really loud or maybe not talking, right? If they're manipulating the situation on purpose, that's not a good thing. So, I've had videos where the officers lying, stuff like that. I pulled you over for running a stop sign like in Beverly Hills, and then never brings up the stop sign thing again and never gives me a ticket for that. Then gives me a ticket for not driving in California on a California license.
Yeah.
And tells me I can't drive here on a Canadian license. Well, that is completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I filed a complaint on him and
I've seen that.
Never had an issue with Beverly Hills pretty much ever again.
Ever again.
The cops, yeah.
What, so how many times do you think you've been pulled over? If you just had to throw.
Yeah,
I know. Are you over like 150?
No, below that.
Okay.
I would say I've been pulled over probably like 60 to 70 times.
And for you getting pulled over
in a decade plus of doing this.
Yeah, but you and a lot of time in seat, so like that's not.
So we're talking like in a 12-month period, maybe 5 or 6 times.
Okay. And for you at this point, lights go off, you're just like, no big deal, pull over,
no big
ready
deal.
to go.
Be calm.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Yeah. Well, and this is my follow-up, right? Because for my friends that do drive and speed, not me, but those people, they want to know the questions. Like, because I've watched, like, it seems like you have this logical kind of like question. Mm-hmm. Is it because you're trying to get them to admit to certain things? Like, what's your thought process around what you ask a cop to essentially prove your innocence or set up a framework for you to be able to dispute a ticket?
Sure. Well, first of all, you got to know what you did. So that goes back to what I just said.
Yeah.
If I was caught, and I know, okay.
So like you go by a guy going 100 and it's a 50 zone and he spins the lights on, turns around, and you're like.
I'm like, I already have my license registration for him because I already know what he wants.
Yeah.
And I hand it to him and he asked me, what was I doing? First of all, I never admit that I'm speeding on site. You don't want to admit you don't want to admit anything, right? Because you never know where the pullover could go.
Yeah.
You don't know if this is a really aggressive officer or something bad could happen that then I need to go to court for. But if it's just a traffic violation, usually I say I got license, registration, and my insurance card, and don't say anything. And then if he goes, what were you thinking going that fast? I just say I reserve the right not to answer any questions.
You'll say that.
Yeah. And then at that point, they usually just walk away. You guys stay here. And they usually walk away and come back and either sometimes give me a warning because they know who I am recently, or they come back with a ticket and they say, sign the ticket. I sign the ticket because I know it's required. I take my ticket and I go on my way and don't argue. Don't ask a bunch of questions. Now, if I've genuinely been not screwing around and I know there's no way this officer is I'm not saying they're lying, but let's say their information is based on maybe another car, right? There's lots of, where I drive a lot of the time, there's lots of supercars. And most people have no clue the difference between a McLaren, a Lamborghini, a Ferrari. They'll just see a car, and if it's red, they'll call it a Ferrari, right? just subconsciously. So if he pulls me over and says, license and registration, I say, what would you pull me over for? He goes, your speed, or whatever they're going to say. Oh, you were with a group of people. Everybody was reported. I say, okay. Do you have any evidence? Do you, not the people who called you in, do you have any physical evidence that I was breaking the law? I'll say that sometimes. And the tricky part is, by law, they in California now, as of January 1st, 2024, they do have to tell you what they pulled you over for. Now, that's for California. But there are places where they don't really need to engage with you at all other than just giving you the citation if that's what they want to do. And I've had that experience, which really doesn't lead anywhere other than then you got to go get an attorney. So, but if they do engage, they might say, well, I got you with radar, right? Well, if I know I haven't been speeding for the last 15 minutes and I was genuinely following the law, I know this cop's full of shit. Yeah. So then I just go hard. I'm all in. I'm like, cool, you got the radar. You got the radar gun?
Yeah.
Cool. Can I see it? When was it calibrated?
Yeah.
Right? Where were you positioned that you got me? Right? All this stuff. And if they answer the questions, well, you can take all that and use it as a defense. I've had a bunch of different scenarios where the officers told me something that I'm like, there's no way. So at that point, I just basically ask him more questions about, how long he's been an officer for.
Do you do that to get doubt in them that you, like, is that kind of, how long they've been an officer? Or is it because you're trying to let them know that if they decide to give you a ticket, that there's a 100% chance you're going to dispute it because you have the questions?
No, at this point, I'm just being a YouTuber, and the longer I can get them to talk, the longer this police interaction is on the side of the highway, the better the retention rate of the people watching the video.
This is all for content.
So at this point, I'm just like, hey, it's legal for you to film the police. So if the officer is telling me I did something wrong and I know I did nothing wrong, well, I'm going to monetize it. So now it's just like drag it out as long as I can. Ask as many questions as possible, but be polite, be calm. It's not going to serve you well if you're aggressive. Especially, not even with the cop. Just like the internet's not going to like you. So just be calm, cool, collected, be educated on what are the laws, especially about vehicle code. So things like your car, right?
Yeah.
I've been educated that, just because from Canada doesn't mean that my car being allowed is, they can't give you a ticket for noise because there's noise ordinance that they can give you tickets for within a certain city. So that's when you just have to take a bit of a slap on the wrist. Now, it's not going to hurt your driver's license or give you points or anything like that if you're a foreigner, but you don't probably want to argue too much about that. I've learned that one the hard way.
Yeah.
But then there's other things where I got this one recently on the Senna in the double header pullover with the Senna just the other week. The first officer told me I had to have a front plate because that's the law in California. And I was like, hey, bro, let me educate you quickly. I'm from Canada, and I'm from a province called Alberta, and they issue one plate. I physically don't get a second plate to put on the front. Well, I'm not going to argue about it, he says on the side of the road. You have to follow the laws of California when you're here. And I'm like, well, that's where you're mistaken. That's where the officer's wrong.
Yeah.
As a tourist, you need to follow certain rules when you enter the states, right? But there are certain things that are
local to the state.
Local to the state.
Yeah, vehicles coming through the state can't be stopping and putting stuff on a car.
Every time I've gotten a no front plate ticket, which is dumb, it's a $25 ticket. It's like a fix-it ticket.
Yeah.
I've just sent that to my attorney. I've never paid one.
Yeah. And would you recommend that anybody that gets a speeding ticket or noise violation or whatever they get a ticket for, that they should fight it?
Again, I think if you're in the right, yeah.
Okay.
Right? You got to remember, police officers are on this pedestal that they should be on because they do something that is extremely hard.
Yeah.
I have tons of respect for first responders, firefighters, police officers, because not just the physical aspect of it when it comes down to a physical altercation, but it's really more a mental game.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're human beings. Just because they have like a badge and a gun and a uniform, they're just people. And there's good ones and there's bad ones.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to treat them with respect when they walk up to your vehicle. And if they're disrespecting you, it's better to walk a line of integrity and just ask lots of questions and keep them talking and let your camera
See
do
what
the
comes
rest,
up.
you know? Take
Yeah.
your cell phone and put it up on your dash and just film the whole thing. Protect yourself.
I never thought about that. Yeah, I've always, you know, I'm Canadian, so it's just like I'm so worried.
No, yeah, I say that too a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those things where obviously, you know, one time I had my windows tinted and I literally switched lanes at night, driving at night, which I never did. So it was kind of funny that I didn't realize how the tint, I couldn't see. And he pulled me over and he was like, because I almost hit him. I literally changed lanes. I almost hit him. And he said, "What are you doing?" And he looked and he's like, "Dude, that's not legal." And I'm like, "I'm sorry." And
They probably thought you were drunk.
yeah, probably. He gave me literally the fix-it ticket, or no, he said, "If you come tomorrow, I'll rip it up." So I took the tint off, went to see him. He was a cool dude.
That was here in Canada.
No, that was in New Brunswick.
New Brunswick.
Yeah, other part of Canada, but definitely Canada.
Yeah.
You just got back from driving one of my favorite cars, the Esco.
Oh, yeah.
Like, dude, what? How did, like, out of all the other cars, and I know you've driven a lot of them, but I mean, it's Chris, right? The the shop. Is it Chris? No, what's this guy's name?
Who
The
owns?
YouTuber, the guy that had your buddy that let you.
Oh, James.
James.
Yeah. Mr. JWW.
Mr.
on YouTube.
JWW, right? JWW.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, he must really like you. I mean, that
He does. I think James likes me.
was so crazy. I'm
It is
like,
crazy.
I know a guy that's driven a Jesko. Like, dude, the Koenigsegg is, for me, I think it's one of the coolest hypercars because he's like, you know, Christian is essentially the Elon Musk of supercars.
For sure.
Like, for legit engineering. I'm a
Correct.
big fan
Yeah.
of all the stuff they build. And man, the sound,
Oh, it's insane.
the theater of it, like just even the spec of that one specifically in London, like
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
you had
London's
to,
not a fun place to drive for the record.
no, it's just a
Let
great
alone
place to
driving
go be goo goo gaga over and
$3 million
yeah.
hypercar. So have you ever driven or ridden in any Koenigsegg?
No,
They are all surprisingly very different. Versus if you drove a Lamborghini Diablo
yeah.
from 1999 and then drove a first gen Mercy and then an LP and then drove an Aventador, there are similarities. Where in the Koenigsegg model lineup, I've had the opportunity to drive in a CCX.
The
I've
early days,
actually,
yeah.
with a manual gearbox. I've actually driven a Regera. Which has no gearbox in the context of its final drive. It's just, it doesn't shift gears. There's no way to
goes.
shift gears. It just goes. I've driven an Agera RS, which shifts gears very aggressively, very much like an SVJ, but has double the horsepower. And then I've driven the Esco, which is this modern, the newest technology from Koenigsegg. Like you said, Christian's just an engineering genius. And they've got this brand new gearbox that I will not even come close to
goes
attempting to explain.
automatic and manual, right?
That's the CC850.
Okay, sorry, that even that.
I know, it gets really
technology,
confusing.
Yeah,
And then there's also this Agera that they converted, where they took the Agera motor out of it, put a Jesko engine in it, and put the gearbox from the CC850 in it. But then you can also switch it over so that it runs off paddles as well. Like, just Google it. I don't want to confuse the people watching. But we'll get to the point that I was going to make, which is the Jesko is, again, so different from anything else. Like, every car that I mentioned that they've made,
and just driving.
other than the windshield looking like
Yeah.
the same way when you look through it, they all drive completely differently. They all feel really planted. That would be one similarity when you're driving Koenigsegg. It's very confidence inspiring. But the Jesko, first of all, it's got like no flywheel or something like that. I don't know if that's right or wrong, or if it's just super light, but I think it's got no flywheel. This new gearbox they engineered. And so when you touch the throttle, it's like
Immediate.
the closest thing I could guess what an F1 car would be like. Because F1 cars are already idling at several thousand RPM.
Yeah.
And then they rev up to 15 or 16 or 17,000 RPM. You could literally barely touch the throttle and it was just like, wow. And I've never experienced that before in any car. And I've driven just
And that
about
was
everything.
factory exhaust.
It's completely
like it's
factory.
rare to experience an exhaust sound through the camera, and watching that video and seeing
Yeah.
everybody's reaction, you could feel.
Yeah. Well, we were driving. I was driving the Yesco. There was a Regera following us. So right there, you can tell the difference between the two cars through sound. And then I love James. James says, driving the Regera is like driving like marine equipment. Like it's like driving a submarine. It's like, oh, it's like it's got this really deep tone. You don't hear any gears shifting when it drives by. It's just a completely different beast, but all made from the same manufacturer.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, just the lightning quickness of the shifting in the Esco, the sound we talked about because of this new engine design, and then the looks of it. I mean, it looks so much, crazier. The aero, when you see one in person, it doesn't do the photos justice, And I was driving an Attack, which has the crazy wing that's floating at the back.
Yeah.
It's all active. It all moves.
That's the crazy part, that it's just comes straight across.
It's so fast. I only got through first, second, like ripping on it.
Yeah, you're
on that one part in London. That was like a side road. There was nobody around. And it was like, yeah, thank God it's got adequate brakes. It flies.
What were the quirks and features that surprised? Like, what did you think was neat about the car? Inside,
It's really endless. Inside's pretty classic Koenigsegg, except for it's got a new display that's attached to the steering wheel.
I'm still undecided. I don't know if I like it.
It's cool.
Is it?
So when you turn the wheel, it self rights. It like
Yeah.
self levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat. I think it's cool. I've never seen any car ever do that before. I mean, it's like McLaren when they came out with the dash flips up and down.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Really cool.
I actually thought when they first introduced that, I was like, oh, that's going to be the first thing to break.
Break, yeah.
And I don't know anybody
Bulletproof.
that's ever had an
No.
issue with that thing flipping out.
No, and I
It
turn
goes
it on
in
and
out
off
every
all the
time, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll put it up if I want it, even in track mode.
Other things that were really unique about the Yesco were just the little subtle things. So like the new headlight design, the new taillight design. Because when you look at Koenigsegg's, they kind of, again, have a different theme to each model. There's certain things that hold true. Like the windshield's always that
the design language of the
airplane
windshield.
cockpit
Yeah.
windshield.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
crazy arch to
Yeah.
it. Wouldn't even want to know what one of those would cost to replace. But then this car is just like so new from the ground up. Like,
And I've always loved the Koenigsegg's, like, whatever you want to call it, like open body look. Like if you hit the button and everything just like Transformer style.
yeah, the doors will open up.
Dude.
The front opens up, and then the rear
Clamshell
clamshell
kinda
opens
style.
up and exposes.
Dude, it's
Actually opens up this way.
Yeah.
And
It's
exposes
just-
the motor. And everything's carbon fiber. Like
everything.
Yeah.
And branded. Like the titanium nuts have the logo, like everything.
Yeah, it's an incredible car. They made more than they've typically made in the past of cars, like Regeras. I think they made 80 in the world.
That's it.
They're making 125 Yescos. Unfortunately, 2 days after I left London or drove that car, a fully exposed carbon body Yesco unfortunately caught fire and burnt to the ground in Greece. That went real viral. Everyone
not
saw
good.
that.
Yeah.
They immediately looked into what caused that. I don't know what it was. Maybe that's been released now, but those cars are hand built, take years. These guys have got their Yescos, and only 25 or 6 have been delivered out of 125. And they've been waiting 3+ years for their car. So this guy who had his car burned down, they're going to build him a new car.
Wow.
Yeah. Instead of being like, well, you got your one of
Yeah.
125 and it burnt to the ground, because obviously it was a manufacturer defect.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Dude, that watching you experience that car was like.
And just so you know, Koenigsegg London, the dealership that just opened,
Yeah.
is
that James's dealership?
So James is involved in it. James is business partner.
Okay.
So that car belongs to the dealership, and they were very fortunate to be able to get that car, because they actually.
So I was gonna ask,
That
like-
wasn't their car.
Oh.
They got that because of other circumstances. I don't know if I can explain
Okay.
or if I'm allowed to say how they got that car, but that car belonged to someone else. They no longer could take it, and the factory offered it to them. That's how they got it, basically.
Okay, it wasn't like a dealer
They
model.
didn't spec that.
Yeah.
That was someone else's car. Which is why in London it's left-hand drive, which made it easier for me to drive.
Yeah, it looked so cool. Let's talk about Ferraris because
Sure. I know you're a big Ferrari fan.
well, I've got the Pista, and then my neighbor's got a 458 Mansouri kit. It's one of the, I think his Instagram says one in Canada, which
I've seen it, the white one.
yeah, Alan, he's my neighbor. And then, but I've heard, I've never, I'm new to Ferrari, but they don't like people messing with their cars. Why? And like, are they calmed down lately or what?
Well, there's some myths around that.
Yeah, tell me
there's
about
the infamous, and us automotive YouTubers love to take advantage of this myth, the whole Ferrari cease and desist letter. The thing Ferrari doesn't want you to do, any brand wouldn't want you to do this. You can appreciate this being an entrepreneur and building companies, is you don't want the brand you work so hard to build to be tarnished in any way. So Ferrari doesn't want you modifying something that they built and then calling it Ferrari. They don't care if you modify their cars, just don't call it Ferrari, right? So, and they also don't want you to tarnish their brand. So if you try to force a brand collab, so you go buy a Ferrari, right? And you have a company selling designer shoes and clothing. This is a true story, by the way. Philip Plein. And you take your shoes and put them on the back of your Ferrari near the Ferrari logo and take a bunch of photos and try to use Ferrari's likeness to promote your products, you'll probably get a cease and desist.
Yeah.
In fact, Ferrari sued him and won.
Yeah.
So he took a pair of his designer shoes, put them on the back, said Ferrari, took photos of it, and Ferrari was like, no, your brand is bringing down the value of our brand because of what your brand stands for.
Association, yeah.
And they won in court.
So is the cease and desist letter not real, or are they?
Oh, it's real.
Okay.
Yeah, I know people who've gotten them.
Over what?
Over modifying something. And then, so for example, if you were to modify a Ferrari and you modify the front fenders and you put a body kit on it and you take the shield, let's say your car was spec'd with a shield, you take the Ferrari logo, you take it off, you put a completely new fender on, which has nothing to do with Ferrari, and put the shield back on that, I ain't gonna like that. Because that is no longer an original Ferrari part that you're putting a Ferrari logo on. And I know that for a fact because my friend James, Mr. JWW, just released a car called the Evoluto. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he took the Ferrari F355 chassis and they modded it to be all modern, and they reinforced the chassis with carbon and made it more rigid and drive really good and redid the whole motor. And I asked him this question, like, you're actually going to build a car based off of a Ferrari and then you're going to sell it like Singer, like Porsche with Singer, right?
Yeah, or Brabus.
And I said, what can you not get in trouble for? And he said he hired attorneys to basically pretend like they were working for Ferrari and they reverse engineered it. If we were Ferrari's lawyers, what would we sue you for?
Oh, that's cool.
And they came up with a list of 18 things or something like that. And so basically nothing on the car that they touched could have the logo back on it except for the front grille, because the front grille on the car stayed original and it had the prancing horse on the front of it. So they think they could put that back on and that's okay. But it doesn't say Ferrari anywhere on the car because everything else in the car was modified. New paint, new everything.
So it's just a chassis. Anybody looking at it, would they think
It's a
Ferrari?
chassis and a body, but they modified the body. It's a full carbon car. It's like psychotic how they built this car. It's so overbuilt. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Manual
look it up.
gearbox. Yeah, I can show it to you.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What do you think, having been in the supercar industry for so long now, what do you think most people wouldn't know about the industry that you've learned? Like they'd be surprised to learn. Like a normal person, like just they understand the supercars, but they're like, what? Like, what would they be surprised?
I'd just go to the basic, again, myth that they're really unreliable and expensive to maintain. Modern supercars are not that. They're a Lamborghini Huracan, any model of it. Anything from the first one they built to an STO, to a Technica, their final edition. Any of those cars are daily drivable, bulletproof, to the point where I actually probably have more confidence daily driving one of those cars than some Toyotas.
That's a big statement.
They are so good. I promise you, if you were to go buy a Huracan, even a used one with 20, 30, 40,000 kilometers on it, which in fact, my street car I bought with 40 plus thousand K, they're selling their car through August. They were actually a DD fan, and I bought that car, and I've driven the living daylights out of it, plus supercharged it, no problems, nothing.
Whoa.
And mine's like one of the most
you've
modified
pushed
Huracans
it
on planet
to the
Earth.
level. You did all the stuff you're not supposed to do.
Yeah. Full race body kit,
Yeah.
supercharger.
That's the thing.
Actual snorkel roof scoop that's from the race car actually is connected to the engine with the race car filter in it, which all had to be tuned. I don't have a single engine light. I don't have a single light on my dash. I have a handbrake in my car from like a drift car. We got rid of the paddles, deleted the paddles. I have the paddles now hooked up to a rally style, carbon style shifter. So shifting up is back, shifting down's forward. Dude, I have my own private little area in LA that I beat the hell out of that car. Third gear burnouts to the point where I'm doing a burnout in third gear. The wheel speed's like 100 miles an hour. So much smoke, you don't know which way's up. It's like being lost underwater in a cave. And car starts, no issues, never a problem.
No issues.
Yeah. I don't even do the oil change.
Man, people are worried to put like exhaust on cars, worrying that it's going to mess it up.
There are certain cars, depending on the manufacturer, that if you don't do certain things in the right order, it will create little hiccups.
Yeah.
But usually nothing detrimental to a modern day.
Yeah, they're built
exotic.
to protect themselves.
Now, ironically, that Diablo is so good. I just picked a really good one. But let's say Diablo generation, even Murcielago generation, early 2000s. If you don't get the right car, the accessories, the motor itself is pretty bulletproof. The gearbox, especially manual, is going to hold up really well. The E-gear, because it's robotic, can have, depending on how you drive it, if you do a lot of reversing out of a long driveway, reverse really chews up the clutch in an E-gear Mercy. But if you avoid the things you know to avoid and do oil changes and services on time, they're really not going to let you down. I just drove my Mercy with my wife, Boston to Boca Raton.
Dude.
8 hours a day, not an issue.
That rally, I will say that car, the interior is so bright.
Yeah, you have to wear polarized sunglasses.
You have to,
It does reflect off the windshield.
Holy cow. Like put that interior, like show everybody. Like and I love blue. It was like, honestly, that blue, and you guys did the blue,
it looks very
custom.
similar to your shirt.
Yeah. Like
a little lighter.
Yeah. Lighter, a little bit more neon poppy, but man, I'm watching videos. I'm like, how do you see? Like it was.
Yeah, it reflects. And that, I can't take credit for that concept of a blue interior on a white exterior car. I was really inspired to do that when I met a guy by the name of Mike in LA who owned a one-off Agera it's called the Agera RS1. And it's white and carbon on the outside with a little bit of blue detail. And then the interior is that blue. And I saw that car and fell in love with it. And I was like, one day I will do an interior mod and it'll be that blue color. And it turned out really good. Minus
so
they
good.
always have to have polarized glasses.
So sharp.
Yeah.
What else about the supercar industry? I mean, there's the whole fiasco I think I've heard with like just allocations.
Yeah.
I mean, what like
Ferrari, your favorite brand.
Yeah.
Is
I would say
very-
McLaren's my favorite brand, but
Is
Ferrari
it?
slowly, yeah. I'm a diehard McLaren because they're the first. It was my first car, non-pretentious, didn't make me feel like I had to jump through hoops. Ferrari's just the sound in the engine, the theater of the pieces specifically. That's the only car I've owned. Just has made me really happy. But yeah, I've just the allocations. I'm trying to get GT3 RS right now.
Yeah. So I was going to say Porsche and Ferrari are the top of the tier for they really reserve the right to reward the longest standing clientele list based on what
very politically
you've
beautifully way to explain
what you've
that.
owned previously
Reward.
or what you're willing to buy right now. That is the not special cars. And I know lots of guys, I have lots of friends that have gone out and bought plenty of the Portofinos and the Lusos and the you name it to get like the Pista
Allocation,
or to get whatever's coming up next.
Yeah.
Lamborghini never really made you kind of like the Ford GT behind us over in the back. You won't see it, but the newer Ford GT, those cars,
There's only
you
500
had to
of those?
apply.
Yeah.
No, they made more of them in the end.
Oh, did they?
They kept adding more and more.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're at now.
Additions.
But every single one, you had to apply online on Ford.
Yeah, and write something
Ford
up,
Performance website.
Yeah.
Yeah, send all your social media in, yada yada. So Ford would do that, and then if you own the car and got an allocation, you also signed that you could not sell it for 18 months.
18 months.
Lamborghini was never known for doing that. But now with the V12 replacement of the Revuelto, that's now is the car that came after the Aventador. It's a naturally aspirated V12 with hybrid assist, 1,001 horsepower. I recently drove one. Beautiful car. Actually sounds pretty cool in the interior. Can't wait to see somebody straight pipe one. But that car, it wasn't that you had to apply to get it. They picked who were going to get them early on, but you did have to sign something saying you couldn't resell it right away.
Okay.
So if you want to sell it, it has to go back to the dealer. And I've already seen some people playing games on the internet where they're saying, we have a Revuelto for sale. And it's like, well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you, Lamborghini knows exactly based on where you are, your GeoIP, and the spec of the car, they'll know what client that is, right? They haven't even delivered that many of them. So that's kind of a ballsy move of a dealership to be like, hey, hit us up. We have a Revuelto for sale. It's like, no, you don't. And
Is
if
it?
you
But
do,
I mean,
that person's in trouble.
what is the game that I've seen people play where they're selling allocations? Sometimes it's fake. I mean, that's a whole thing in itself.
Fraud.
Yeah,
fraud. You got to watch out for fraud.
Like wiring 50 grand for an allocation.
Yeah.
And then,
Which seems dumb because when I've seen that, it's like really big ticket cars.
yeah.
You know, I actually saw that a lot with the Yesco. I saw guys saying they had Yesco allocations.
Really?
Yeah,
I
from
didn't
like
think
the
it
mid-
happened
from
at
like
the
the Middle
hyper
East.
level.
That's what I saw.
Huh.
Yeah. And the Porsche GT3 RS is selling it was for a while there. It was like double when they first came out.
Stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
don't
interesting.
don't buy that car for double.
No.
It's going to come down. Everyone has.
Yeah. What other stuff do you think who's doing it best in the supercar space? Because there's some new ones coming out, right? These new electric.
Yeah, it depends on if you're a fan of that. You know,
Yeah.
I feel really old saying this, but
going just now,
I hate electric cars.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's too premature. I think that the electric cars are, and this is my opinion, are not the thing that's going to remotely even put a dent in the, problem of why they're allegedly here. It's very interesting to me why the governments are pushing for manufacturers to be full electric by 2035.
Yeah.
Now,
Especially with low
hybrid-
production numbers like the supercars,
Yeah.
right? Like,
hybrid assisted cars, I don't have that big of a problem with. Like, look how cool the P1 is. I was just talking about how the P1 out accelerates the Senna, and that's only due to the electric motors.
yeah.
So that's cool. But let's keep the combustion engine around, and let's make cars sound cool, and keep that soul and that enthusiasm that we like. And because electric cars just lose it,
It loses the theater.
it does.
So when you look at because you said you drove the Revuelto?
Revuelto.
Yeah, and when you
think
pronounce
I'm
it, I was
saying it
like,
right.
"Well done, sir," because I'm not going to get it.
Usually I pronounce everything wrong when it comes
Well,
to
you got that one, I think, nailed. Compared to an SF90, do you feel like?
Man, you can't compare them.
Yeah,
Lamborghini is such a different beast. And I used to love doing this when I was, not into owning and driving exotics pre-DDE. I used to be like, oh yeah, the Lamborghini this versus the Ferrari that. It's like they are apples and oranges.
Yeah.
They are so different. They're not even on the same trajectory for what they're both trying to accomplish.
yeah.
So comparing them is
It's
impossible.
kind of silly.
It's silly. It's goofy. Now, an SF90 is a wickedly fast, cool car. I think it looks cool.
I mean, is there a point where it going from 0 to what the hell am I doing? Like that. That's
Right? Where
the
does
thing.
it stop?
I mean, that's the thing with the electric assist. Like the P stuff for me is a lot of power. I couldn't imagine having some torque filling where it literally goes from like 0 to 1.4 seconds into a tree at warp speed because like it's just so much.
You'd be shocked. So driving the Revuelto, 1,000 horsepower, brand new Lamborghini.
Yeah.
It didn't. Now, I'm a bit jaded. I have a lot of 1,000+ horsepower cars in various different engine trims and
Tunes,
stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah. So I'm used to it. But I was expecting it to be more violent. It's not.
That's
It's
what I was
like
asking.
You could hand the keys of 1,000 horsepower Revuelto to your wife, and she could cruise
You'd feel
around
good with
town. Not a problem.
Okay, so that's quite different.
It's not like the snappy, instant, gonna shoot you like a rocket into a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's amazing. There was a time when 400 horsepower was like
The big thing.
godly. Yeah.
Well, then I jump into the GT3. which is from a driver's experience, just so fun because
Pure.
it's not overly powered. So it means you really get to play with the car at the upper limits without getting in trouble with the law, right? You get that 9,000 RPM and it's just the audio of it.
Yeah.
Somebody's debating, because like this is, I remember I went through this struggle when I bought my first car around trying to make it about what I wanted versus I was taking a lot of opinions from other people.
Yeah. I've been down that road.
It's tough because you're like, I don't know, so I'm not going to not listen. But at the same time, I don't want to buy something for somebody else. Like I want the car color I want the color. If somebody was buying their first supercar, regardless of what they're spending, how would you tell them to approach the decision of what kind of car they should get for them?
That's a good question. I do get that question. And I tell people to go out and test drive cars and get a little bit of experience under their belt before they go out and just drop their money on something. Drive as many as you can. And through that experience, just like anything in life, you're going to come out with an understanding of what it is you liked over something else. And then at the end of the day, if you're buying used, just try to buy something in your favorite color. Right? Because you're going to be staring at it every day for a long time.
Yeah.
If you kind of have a little inkling like, oh, I want something really loud, but that's not really something you've ever done before, don't do it because it'll just bite you in the butt. Like if you get a lime green Porsche and you take it home and that's the rest of your house is pretty muted, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. You're also going to get a ton of attention. So you definitely need to buy a car based on your current situation, personality. You know, don't get in over your head. Don't try to buy something
and even that
don't
advice
buy
is
something
so,
by the price.
Yeah.
Just because a car is more expensive doesn't make it cooler.
Yeah.
Everybody watching you drive around your car, honestly, no one cares. Everybody's thinking about themselves.
Don't buy something by the price. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Don't go and get an exotic car just for attention, right? Like don't go out and be like, I think, Verde Scandal Aventador is going to be the best car because it's going to get me a ton of attention, right? A lot of people don't like driving Aventadors. Like they're kind of clunky. You got to get into how that car drives to appreciate it. Even the SVJ, which is the best version of that model line. And I have people who are like, I hate the SVJ. And I'm like, that blows my mind because I love it. One of my favorite cars of all time that I've ever had, right? But that's the difference between people. Your experience, what you do. So go out, buy something that is definitely within your budget and buy something that you've done the homework on based on maintenance. Because there are cars that require more maintenance. Like you buy a Bugatti Veyron, this is a little over the top. But to some people, Bugatti Veyron is still, it's only in that one to one, call it 2 million for a rare spec. But like they're $1 million car. Like I could have got that instead of a Senna. Here's a good example. I could have got a Bugatti Veyron for the same price I paid for my Senna. Do you know what the service scheduling on a Veyron is? Well, first of all, the tires are glued to the rims.
Is that why they're so expensive? Isn't it 50 grand a piece or something?
Yes, yes. You change the tires, which by the way, you cannot take to any tire shop.
No, it has to go
The car
back
goes
to Bugatti.
to Bugatti. Yeah. They used to take the rims and tires off. I think there's a machine in North America that does it now, but they used to take your rims and tires off, send them back to France. They'd take your tires off. They'd put new tires on for $55,000 USD. You do that 3 times, then you need to also replace the rims because they're glued to the rims. Now you're like at $100,000+ after 3 tire changes. The oil change in that car is like $25,000. Because they have to go in and take all the bodywork off. I mean, that car is ridiculous. And then they made the Chiron, which has none of those issues. They have normal tires, you can put them on. But if you don't understand what you're getting into, that's where you can get into hot water.
Yeah.
And as you go into the later years of supercars, some of them have more maintenance. Like a Murcielago, I love this car. But you got to stay on top of the maintenance because it's got older tech. It's the accessories that are going to let you down. It's like a belt or a pulley or your AC will go out or the petcock valve on your Mercy radiator. Those are things that fail, not the motor, not the trans most of the time.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Gumball because,
Sure.
I mean, rallies, again, I was watching your rallies. It seems like you guys are creating so much content. You're meeting fans. I mean, your fans are ridiculous. I messaged you while you were doing it. I was like, dude,
DD fam don't mess around.
They are passionate. I love it. And the way you guys support them and give them, like you did the key things, and you're just always trying to just love on them. What if somebody's considering, because I've never done a rally, the people that have supercars that have never done a rally, what would you say to them?
Kind of like buying a car. Start small.
Okay.
Right? Even if you could afford to go on Gumball. The next Gumball, by the way, is Southeast Asia. We start in Vietnam.
Did you find the car? Because I know you came here looking for one. Did you guys get the car that you're going to ship there?
So in the end, we got my car done.
No way.
Literally by the last hour.
Is it the Aventador?
It was my Aventador SVJ, which I've already done 2 of my 3 Gumballs in. So now it's going to do its 3rd. I shipped that car to Europe and back. So now that car's in a container on its way to Vietnam. So, yeah, I mean, that's the big boy pants rally, right? Like that is on different continents than you live and your car's on. There are.
And it's how much is it to go to Gumball? All said and done, expenses, travel, shipping.
That depends on the person.
Okay.
So the entry fee for this one, I believe, is about $100,000 USD. That doesn't include you getting your car to and from the event. The event's in Vietnam. So pay for all that. You pay for all your own gas. You have to buy special insurance, which is through Gumball. So we're talking 100. I'd say I will be into this with Dave for DDE as 175,000 USD expense by the time we do the rally, get back. Now, Dave and I are middle-aged. We're middle-aged. We're fun guys to be around, but we don't go to clubs.
You don't have a support team.
I don't drink.
Yeah.
And when Dave drinks, he doesn't drink a lot. He has a couple of drinks. We don't do anything else. We don't do any recreational drugs.
Gambling.
We don't. I gamble a little bit, but not like
but
I don't go. Some guys go like 20, 50 grand in.
Yeah.
I'd go and spend a few $100 at a blackjack table because it's fun. But like that's where your expenses are going to add up. If you're like the person, and there are guys that come out and do this, who want to do like bottle service at the club every night on Gumball, right? The flex. That gets, forget about the entry fee. These guys are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in a week doing crazy stuff. And I've seen it because you can go to the club and watch someone. And
some of them, you said, like, because of the trunk space we were looking at, some of them have support vehicles. They don't have to worry, but they'll do the STO.
Yeah.
Right.
The STO, there are people who are breaking. There's a lot of STOs actually on this year's Gumball.
And the STO has 0. This is the smallest frunk I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's only meant for a helmet. It's like the
barely fits a helmet.
Correct.
It wouldn't fit a double XL helmet.
Correct. So, yeah, these guys are bringing support vehicles like Escalades and stuff that are wrapped to match their car. Some guys bring 3 vehicles. And what's crazy is in the Middle East, in Europe, you could rent an exotic car and do Gumball. You cannot rent a car in Asia. So every one of the 100+ supercars that are coming, it's between 100 or 120 they have. Every one of those cars is the person's actual personal vehicle. So we call this like the big boy version of Gumball because you can't get out of the shipping fees and just rent a car for 25 grand for a week.
No, you got to be all in.
You're all in. Yeah.
Let's go.
But if you're going to do a rally, I would suggest North America. There's plenty of good rallies. You go do Gold Rush Rally, which I just did with my wife. Tons of fun. You start in one location in North America, drive 8 or 9 days, and in another location. They have events planned all along the way. I really believe that it's a lot of fun, and that's why I did it,
So wrapping up on that specific theme, what are your philosophies for people that, like, what would you tell somebody that owns a supercar or is thinking to get one in regards to the ethos of sharing it with the people? Because man, you came to my office and you parked out front and we came out, it was a car show, like literally, and you were so kind, letting people take photos and be around. And like, is that something that you're like, hey, if you have these kind of cars, you should share, versus trying to keep people away and get mad because they take a photo? What are your 2 cents on that?
Yeah, again, I think it comes down to your personality. If it bugs you to have that type of money invested in something and you take a lot of pride in it, which I get, and you are nervous because maybe you've got some scar tissue from another experience or something, like that's on an individual basis. I'm all about sharing. I really believe what you put out to the universe is what you're going to get back. I always try to put out tons of positive energy. I never think about people hurting my car or having a door ding, because people ask me all the time, how are you parking the Senna amongst all the other cars. They call them, you know, the regular cars when you go to the grocery store, when you're at the hotel. And I just say, well, I don't know. I've never had a door ding. I don't put that out there. I don't think anyone's going to hurt my car. Right? I think it's the mentality. I love sharing the car. If I can, I'll let people get in it. If there's a lot of people, I say no, because you let one person in. You're done. I try to be fair, right? So if I let someone sit in it, it's either going to be a child where I can be like, oh, I let the kid sit in it, you know, and then I can say no to the, you know, 19-year-old teenager and all the other adults at a car show, because I'm like, I just let the kid sit in it for a sec. And they're like, I get it. But yeah, if you're around at a gas station, I put plenty of people in my car. So I've had a few people, just like, again, last week when I was driving the Senna, I had at one gas station a young kid get in, and then I like had another gas stop the following day. I had like probably a 65-year-old woman who was just losing her shit over this car. And I was like, this is so cool. I don't normally get older women who appreciate the car.
Do you want to sit in it?
So I was like, you want to sit in it? I was just pumping gas. But yeah, I like it.
Dude, I love it.
No one's going to hurt the car more than me. Right? That's my opinion. So I'm like, get in it. Kick the carbon on the way in. It's all PPF. I've protected it all.
You have.
Yeah.
Damon, I appreciate you on so many levels. And
well, thank you for watching the channel.
Dude,
I had no idea you knew who DD was, like our brand, so far back. I thought you just figured it out when I started working with August and you were starting to buy supercars.
No, man. You inspire, as you know, there's the people that you get to meet, and then there's bazillions of people you'll never know about that you've definitely inspired on this journey. And I call it the McLaren mindset. Like, to your point, what you just said, the philosophy of what you put out, you get back. To me, I had this mindset that I didn't want to be too showy and too, you know, I'm Canadian. I don't even wear a watch. Like, I didn't want to be that guy.
I used to. I got rid of them. Yeah,
and then I realized I was depriving myself and everybody else because I wanted to use my car to inspire, to show them. So I do stuff with At-Risk Youth. We always bring the cars, and it's been some of the funnest moments in my life, way more than the business success, and you've inspired that. So thanks for that. Thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me again. Your podcast success and your YouTube channel is taking off. Our last one we did rocked it.
Dude, it was crazy. And your fans showed up in the comments, and I was like,
of course.
This is amazing.
Yeah, engagement. I try to go engage with them too. There's a point there where you can't reply to everybody, guys. I apologize if I missed your comment.
He would if he could, but he's got a family.
Oh, man. Yeah, and Dave and I do it all.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's commenting in YouTube, 90% of the time it's me. But that's it. We don't hire people to go and reply. We want it to be genuine, authentic.
Just show up.
Yeah, we show up, and there's days where I just can't, you know, between all the platforms. It's
dude,
like,
the stories you do. The stories channel is impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy how it took off, hey?
Yeah.
People just want more of what are we doing when we're not holding a camera for the main channel. Yeah.
It's awesome. Thanks again, man.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.